Hi, I'm Rob, pastor of Calvary Chapel, Turlock. What should an American Christian think about our national debt? The subject of government spending doesn't really seem like a biblical issue, but the Bible has much to say about money and debt. Proverbs 22:7 says, "The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." Israel was promised blessings for obedience in the Old Testament. As Deuteronomy 28:12 says, "The Lord will open to you his good treasure. You shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow." The implication was clear. Lending from excess is a blessing, but borrowing from a deficiency is a curse. Habitual deficit spending is the result of living beyond our means. Honestly, it's a form of stealing. Taking on a reasonable amount of debt to buy the necessities of life, especially appreciating assets like a house, or critical items like a car for transportation, they're often necessary. But making a practice of living beyond your resources to fund a lifestyle you can't afford is thievery. It's spending money now that will never be repaid. What is true for individuals is true for nations as well. The United States has recently hit $35 trillion in debt. Very soon that number will eclipse 36 trillion, with a cool 40 trillion dead ahead. Every year, our federal government spends about $1.5 trillion more than it receives in revenue. Mind the T's. We're talking about trillions, not billions. A trillion is quite a vast number. For perspective, 1 trillion seconds is 31,710 years. If you could stack $1 trillion in $100 bills, it would reach 631 miles high. Bear in mind, the space station orbits Earth at only 240 miles above the surface. We're talking about sums of money that are difficult to fully comprehend. Government spending fits into three main categories. The mandatory category includes Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and welfare. The second category is discretionary, which is mostly defense. And the third category is interest on debt. And that accumulated interest is now more than $1 trillion a year. That's more than we spend on national defense annually. And a large portion of those payments are going to creditors like China, Japan, and the Gulf states. They're becoming wealthy from our debt payments. But there's more. The United States very generously gives away money in foreign aid that we don't have. We borrow money from the world to give money to the world, if that makes any sense. We've given about $20 billion to Afghanistan since the Taliban took over. We've sent more than $10 billion to Ukraine in their ongoing war. And Lebanon, host country to Hezbollah, currently shooting rockets into Israel, received $386 million last year. Crazy. What does this have to do with the Christian worldview? Government deficit spending inflates our money supply and causes prices to rise. Our young people are delaying marriage and having children, and they can't afford homes in no small part because it's just too expensive. You can thank our government's reckless spending for pricing these families out of the middle class. And this debt tsunami requires more and more taxes to keep the nation afloat. The national debt is an albatross around all of our necks that leads to wholesale economic decline and makes us slaves to our financial masters. The interest payments alone on our debt could fund critical infrastructure and secure our borders. Instead, our deficit spending is stealing the future wealth of our children to fund generous pet projects for politically protected interest groups. The mountain of debt solidifies the wealth gap and defeats the working man from ever providing for his family. It's a deep spiritual concern, and Christian voices should speak up. We should be heard. Thanks for watching, and have a blessed day.